I'm JJ Heller, and this is Instrumental, a show about the big and small moments that shape our lives. Big love happens in the small moments. Hey everybody, it's JJ.
And her husband Dave.
And I cannot believe it, but we have reached the final episode of Season 3 of Instrumental. And this is a really special one. Like, get out a pen and paper and take some notes kind of special.
Or just buckle up, buckaroo.
Or that.
It's quite a ride.
Yes. And before we get started, we want to say thank you so much to you. It's been a joy to keep you company over the past year.
I have loved podcasts for the past 10 years or so, and it's really been a dream come true for me to have our own podcast. We thought really long and hard about a unique idea for our show, and we are so proud of the fact that we came up with this idea of telling stories backwards over the course of these last 3 seasons. But the backwards format is actually very time intensive.
Like hours and hours and hours.
Yes. And because our job is not full-time podcasters, but we're also trying to create music, we've realized we actually need to kind of simplify our format. And so for this episode, we're going to jump around in our guest's story, and it's actually going to sound pretty similar to what you might expect for future episodes of Instrumental.
We're hoping to create more episodes of the show, so please stay subscribed and take this opportunity to catch up on any past episodes you might have missed.
Now, let's talk about our guest for today's episode, Brad Montague.
Yay! If you were active on social media around 2012, then there's a really good chance you saw at least one Kid President video.
Yeah, they were super sweet messages of hope and love offered to the internet by a magnetic and enthusiastic little boy wearing a suit.
Yes, and even though you see little Robbie's face on the screen, it's actually his brother-in-law, Brad, who was the grown-up responsible for all the delightfully inspiring speeches that Kid President delivered.
Well, Brad recently released a new book called Becoming Better Grown-Ups.
And if you're like me and a subscriber to the Magnolia Journal, Brad is the man behind the cute little cartoons in every issue.
He's a jack of all trades.
He certainly is.
And Brad stays very active on his Instagram account, which is at Brad Montague. So if you're looking for a little shot of joy in your feed on a regular basis, Brad is definitely one of our favorites to follow.
For sure.
So let's get started with the show.
Brad's story begins with a part of his life that he hasn't actually told very many people about. When he was in college, he paid his bills using a unique skill set that became the foundation for the career he eventually built in art and communication. Here's Brad.
I was working at a summer camp and sort of, every now and then they'd be like, oh no, there's a crisis. Somebody watch the kids. And then I would have to be in front of kids and would begin playing a song or come up with a game or tell a story that wasn't true. That was just, you start to do that and you realize, oh, this is connecting with people in some way. And so it pulled me out of my comfort zone. And so then when I get back to college, people are like, hey, do that thing you did at camp with these kids. And I'm like, oh, but that was children who were watching it. They're like, no, do that. And as I did it, it made no sense to me that I'm doing this. And yet at the same time, it made all the sense in the world. And that was a period in life where everyone's trying to find who they are and what they're about, what their skills are.
I think I'm funny guy.
And yet I felt like I think I'm supposed to do this, but I don't know if this is the way I'm supposed to do this. I have all these ideas, but I don't know exactly what to do with them. And so when I was given opportunities to share, I took them and I ended up paying for a lot of my college doing that and not even knowing what it was I was doing. I'm just grateful the internet wasn't as big of a thing when I was in school.
Yeah.
Because there would be just a library of shame. A guy had seen the work I was doing and said, I want you to come to this open mic night we're doing. It's a whole bunch of songwriters in Nashville. And I had never seen real songwriters in real life, like showing their craft.
Yeah.
And it was just magic. And then I got up. Instead of doing what I had come to prepare to do, I thought, I'm in the middle of songwriters. So I shared like a song I had written a while back or something, and crickets, nothing, no response. And afterwards, the guy was like, I thought you were going to do what I'd seen you do. And I said, but these were all songwriters. And he's like, no, I wanted you to do what you do. I didn't want you to do what they were doing. Mm-hmm. And it was this realization that I so badly wanted to fit in, but we're so needed to not do that. We're needed to be who we are, who we're made to be, and to let that be seen and revealed. And so as uncomfortable as it would have made me, that's what the room needed. It would have added something, a note, a whole different note to that whole symphony.
Right.
And I was doing these incredibly goofy shows that were a mess and all over the place. And yet afterwards, there would be conversations with people, and specifically young people. Somehow, some way, they had seen through all the goofy. I remember one guy coming up afterwards and talking to me about his journey with depression. And it was as if he could sense that somehow I had been there too. And it stunned me because this had been a total night of goofing off and laughing. And he was like, I know, like where you understand what it is to feel this darkness and this heaviness. And he began to talk about that journey. And I got a little glimpse of that space that is between any people when we communicate. Fred Rogers talks about this, and his work was on TV, and he talked about it all the time as communication. And then he talked about that there's always a sacred space between any people when they connect. Now, I didn't have the words for that at that point in my life, but I started to sense and feel that even in the middle of the jokes, there's a sacred space where people can hear the things that they're needing to hear and feel the warmth and belonging that they're hungry for. A joke had the power to do that. I want to figure this out. The minute I stopped seeing what I was doing as performance and started seeing it as some sort of service, some sort of ministry even, it flipped it. And I became less obsessed with, okay, I've got to get this right. I've got to actually put on a great show. Instead, I just really want to connect with people. And here's a gift. Here's a little thing I made.
Yeah.
Let's be people together.
Well, it almost sounds like less of a performance and more of an invitation for everyone to just be who they were made to be.
Yes, yes. How can we impact the lives of the people who find the things that we put out into the world? Felt like, okay, I need to get a real job, a grown-up person job. I worked in a local news show, doing editing, running camera, writing some scripts. There was actually one day where they were filming a news promo, that coming up at 6:00. And and I was in the background walking with some papers, and I saw that they were on camera and turned and looked and waved and then walked back. And I remember thinking, ooh, that felt nice. I like that. What if I did that every single day? So I started trying to time me going to the copy machine when they're filming the things. But they got wise to that.
Can someone grab Brad? We're about to start filming.
We're about to start filming. But I remember a really magical moment in the newsroom where I had come back with a bunch of footage from we'd filmed. There's a really terrible car accident that had happened. And I had filmed this footage, and I'd come back, and everybody was patting me on the back, like, great job. Oh, you got some great stuff. And then I'm in the edit bay, and this was a really old facility. And so they still had some of the reel-to-reel stuff, and I was turning on a wheel.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm going through the footage, and one of the elder newsmen comes in, and he's looking at it, and he's sort of guiding me on what to cut out of the story and what to do. And he mentioned that must have been a really bad day for them. And I had not thought. The whole time I was thinking, I got to get great footage. I got to come back to the newsroom with something really good. And I was thinking, yes, I'm really proud of this piece. And he is looking at it with human eyes. I realized I had gotten so swept up in the telling of the story, I hadn't even looked at the actual story I was telling. That this was not a beautiful thing I was adding. This was not hope that I was giving. In fact, I started to sort of think about, I was running the camera, and who knows, like, I probably brushed past somebody who was crying, or I brushed past people who were feeling deep emotions so I could get a better shot of them. And just that woke me up to, I don't want to lose my humanity in telling stories. And so you go through all that, and you just started going, like, I have all these ingredients, but what do I do with them? And almost waiting to get picked. Like, I was sort of hoping that someone would see what I was doing and have a magic wand and go, oh, come on, I have a carriage for you that awaits.
Yeah.
This is what you need to do with all your skills that you've been picking up.
Yeah, it's like Walt Disney is hopping into the editing bay of the local newsroom, like, where's the real talent?
Brad, there he is.
We saw that car accident that you did a video for, and
You have real potential.
and that wasn't happening. And I had a good friend, Jeff Schinneberger, who one day, I'm sort of moping about what I'm going to do with my life. And he looked at me and said, Brad, you are one of the most creative people I know, but we're all just waiting on you to actually do one of your ideas. I was so upset with him when he said that, because that's sort of a bundle of words that hurts to hear when you feel like you have been trying. I felt like I had been. But it was exactly what I needed to hear from somebody who saw who I could be, saw who I was, who saw my gifts for what they were. And that gave me the drive to say, okay, I'm going to not just circle the runway, I'm going to land this plane and try to make something happen and be okay if it fails.
So when you sat down after that conversation and thought about what you really wanted to do, what did you come up with?
Immediately my mind went to kids. Like, I care about kids. I care about childhood. I care about innocence and wonder. And I thought, I don't know exactly what it is, but something that amplifies the heart of childlikeness. At the time, we thought it was an especially noisy election season. It was 2011. There's an election happening. There was a whole lot of discourse online of people typing in all capital letters and shouting, and I'm thinking, and I had been spending time with a lot of schools, a lot of kids. I had just been around that sort of optimism, and then to get online and hear all of these other sort of grown-up voices, people who I thought would know how to handle these situations, I thought, they actually need to listen to kids more. And what if I could create a way for people to listen to kids more? And so the idea was, okay, every week I'm going to release just a little burst, a message from the president of kids. And so it's Kid President, and it's just going to be a short little video. I loved my little brother-in-law. They live across the street from me. We live across the street from my in-laws. Some people, that would be a miserable existence, but I love my family. And Robbie was very young at the time, maybe 7 or 8. And that was one of the ways we played together, was like just making up songs and being goofy and just recording things and then playing them fast so you could hear your voice sound like a chipmunk. And so it wasn't weird that I was like, hey, let's make a video, and you're going to wear your Easter suit and you're going to get behind this old record player and it's your desk. And so the first video got a couple hundred views and I thought, whoa, this is great. And I said, okay, every Thursday I'm going to do this. It's not just a one-off thing. Every Thursday I'm going to release something. So it became a way of putting guardrails around my creativity, where I was really channeling it all into one place in a consistent way. And that unlocked a whole lot for me.
Well, I mean, it sounds to me like prior to that, you had no deadline for your own creativity.
Yes, it's like I had to be invited. You have to invite me to your event, and
Right.
then I'll create something.
Yeah.
You have to give me permission
Right.
to do this. And this was one of those, nobody asked for this. There's no agenda other than I want to release and say this. It was a true lump in the throat. And it came out as a burst of joy. What I started to see is that people would share these little videos, at least in the early days, almost like you would share a greeting card. So like it was, hey mom, I'm thinking of you. Or here, hey, I hope you have a better day, Paul. And like they would send this little video as like a little shot of sunshine that they would shoot in somebody's way. And that was a new way for me to even think about how things are created and how they're received. To think that a video is not content, but it's a present. It's a little gift. And here, I made this for you. And I even started using that language. We made this for you. And it started to be passed around as if people were not, you've got to see this, or check this out. At 2 minutes in, something incredible happens. Like all the clickbait stuff. It was just, here, I like you. I believe in you. Watch this. And the things that we create online can actually affect the real world. They can have a tangible effect on people's lives on the other end. So the numbers that we're watching were not just numbers, they're heartbeats. And those people that are watching actually have other heartbeats in their orbit. And so then I started to have a call to action of a little thing you could do. And one of the first ones was listen to a kid today. And the feedback from that became, people telling stories of how they actually paused and listened to whether their own kids or a nephew or a neighbor. And that became really exciting to me. And one day I'm in a meeting and I start getting a bunch of texts that one of the videos had been shared by some sort of blog that shared viral videos. And it was one of those blogs that normally mocks videos. And instead they had said, we can't say anything bad about this. And so I was really relieved by that. But because of that, lots of other people started to find it. And I started getting these messages from different people saying, hey, we'd like to work with you. We'd like to help you reach more people. And I'm very innocent and thinking, oh, yay, people like me. And so I start, responding to every email and taking every meeting, and then realizing these were just people who wanted to take the things I was making and make some money and, use it for other stuff. And I just thought, I'm just going to keep going, keep making. And then one day I get an email and it says it's from Rainn Wilson, who I knew he was an actor on The Office, which was, on the air at that time. It was this giant show. And I'm thinking, yeah, right, this is really Rainn Wilson, like Dwight from The Office. There's no way. And I thought it was one of my friends, like possibly just trying to make a joke because he knew I liked that show. And I ended up in a Skype meeting and there he was. And he said, hey, we've got this thing. It's called Soul Pancake. And we've been making videos for Oprah. And, we've got all this content that we really love, but it's very sad. And we need just a burst of joy. And so could you join our team? And help you just keep making what you're making. And it was this true partnership. I found my fellow weirdos. I found these people who their intentions really were, let's make little gifts for people on the internet to change their day. About 10 videos in with them, I thought this was going to be like the end of our season with them. It was a really cool run. We'd done 10 episodes, and so I wanted to go out big, so I made this pep talk video.
The world needs you to stop being boring. Yeah, you. Boring is easy. Everybody can be boring, but you're gooder than that. Life is not a game, people. Life isn't a cereal either. Well, it is a cereal. And if life is a game, aren't we on the same team? I mean, really, right? I'm on your team, be on my team. This is life, people. You got air coming through your nose. You got heartbeat. Create something that will make the world awesome.
That became this runaway train, this video that was seen by millions of people in just a matter of days. And instead of being the end of something, it was the beginning of a new chapter.
Here's one thing about Pep Talk that I don't think is talked about very much. And me being a musician, like I notice it every time I watch the video, is how impactful the Sleeping at Last song is that you chose for it.
Oh, yes. Ryan is an incredible musician and songwriter. So I would rehearse the script. I wrote the script and then would rehearse it, and I was playing his song in the background as part of it, and it became such a key part of it. And I just called him and said, hey, I need permission to use this song. Here's what it's for. And I don't have a ton of money right now, but here's what we have. And I then began to collaborate with Ryan in different ways where I felt like he was a good luck charm as I needed. Like I was a good partnership to team up together. The music he makes sounds like what I think a soul would sound like.
Well, I've heard him talk about his creative process where he just says like he actually thinks visually. I mean, he does all these outer space songs, and it's kind of like, all right, what does an eclipse sound like, or whatever.
I mean, there's a reason Shonda Rhimes always wants his music in Grey's Anatomy and different shows.
Oh, yeah. It's working out all right for him these days.
Yeah, he's doing okay.
He's all right. He's all right.
You have this runaway train of a viral success on your hands. Where did this kind of self-directed assignment take you?
When I first started posting the Kid President videos, there was this little community that built up around them, and it was fans and friends. It was people who just loved the joy of it, and I loved that. And I thought, this is great. And then this video goes crazy viral, and suddenly people are seeing it and discovering this little community for the first time. So this precious little thing has now had 30 million views and is being talked about on every news program in different languages I don't understand. And now all the incoming transmissions are from people all over asking like, we want this and we want this and you need to do this, and asking me to make a decision right now about, what do you want to do with this show? And hey, we want this kid to be in a horror movie, and we want this, all these, just the craziness that comes with virality. And I shut down. Closed the blinds, locked the doors, and my family, Robbie's mom and dad, my wife, Robbie's my little brother-in-law who played the part of Kid President, we're sort of gathered around. They could see my brokenness. They could see that like the light was gone in my eyes. I was just like, let's just cut it off. This is the end. This is not what I wanted. And they brought me back to the place of, you started this because you guys just like being together and making things. And then you kept going because you liked the ways it was impacting people and it was making a real difference in lives. So now let's ask the question, what do you want to do? Like, where do you want to go? And I started bringing up, oh, this email said this and there's this. And like, no, stop. Where do you want to go? Like, what's the story we want to tell? And so I paused from responding to all of those crazy emails and instead started to write out a wish list of here's what I would like people to look like after they've experienced this journey with us. Here's what I want to happen for schools. Here's some people who might make good collaborators to accomplish things. And that led to going to the White House, to working with Tom Hanks, to building shelters for men and women who are homeless in different cities, to having work appear in schools and doing a sleepover by the Declaration of Independence. Like, some just really wild places and stuff. Singing with Beyonce. These things that just were not on my list, but went beyond the list. I think that list helped me know what I could say no to. If I hadn't have made that list, I would have just said, this sounds like a good opportunity, let's do it. It's not to say I didn't make mistakes, but I knew that is not the story we want to tell.
The image of the Cinderella cartoon popped into my head, where she works so hard making this beautiful dress to go to the ball, and she puts it on, and then the stepsisters come and they like, I want that, and like tearing all of these pieces of this thing that was like supposed to be so beautiful. And gosh, that's got to be so painful.
Yeah, to have other people sort of want to speak into, this is what you should do, this is what you should be. One of the best things that happened is right after everything went viral, there's a guy who reached out to me who had also had a video go viral. He's a filmmaker who'd worked with the child. He had a video that's called Kane's Arcade. And it's just really, if you haven't seen it, it's just a beautiful little documentary. It's about a kid who built an arcade out of cardboard. And then Nirvan, who's the filmmaker, he surprised this kid and had hundreds of customers show up one day to play at his arcade. This is really just a really great person and artist. And he reached out, and I thought, oh, he's probably wanting to like talk about making something or,
collaboration opportunity.
Yeah. And his first thing was, how are you? How's Robbie? Are you guys okay? And he said, a lot of people are probably reaching out right now wanting you to do something or wanting something. And he said, I don't want anything. I just want you to know you have a friend here and anything you need. And he became a lifeline and a warm blanket. And it gave me hope that I could navigate through this in a way that I could one day be proud of and lead to some places that were not defined by what other people said it should be, but what it actually is meant to be and could be. Since then, there's a little secret crew of people who have had some sort of viral thing happen, and we reach out to people and find them if they have something just to let them know those exact words.
Hey, Chewbacca mom, you're all right.
Yes, exactly. And she's one of them. We sent a message to her.
Yeah.
These people, and literally just not to give them strategies or pointers, but just to give them some friends. Say, hey, you don't have to say yes. You don't even have to create anything else ever again. We see you. What you did meant something to people. You'd be proud of that, but don't listen to anything else.
Yeah. I think it's really hard once you've made something that's experienced a huge level of success, then to not make the next thing with the intention of making that successful too. Like making the success the motivation, but it's so destructive though, because then if it doesn't match that level of your expectation, then it feels like you're failing.
You create out of love and joy and you make the thing, and then it's received well, and then you want to replicate it, so you start creating with your editor voice running in your head. You start, and instead you're operating out of fear and out of a desire for acceptance instead of just the purity of making the thing.
Yeah.
Even now, to this day, I sometimes can't enjoy when a good thing happens because I will compare it to something else good that happened.
Sure.
It took a long time to get past that. There's a line in that pep talk video where Kid President, I had him say,
Will Michael Jordan have quit? Well, he did quit. No, he retired. Yeah, he retired. But before that, in high school, what if he quit when he didn't make the team? He would have never made Space Jam. And I love Space Jam.
And then it has a turn after that where it says,
What will be your Space Jam?
what will you create that will make the world more awesome? So it has this joke and it's structured like a joke and then a message at the end. After it's disarmed you, it then says, well, what will be your Space Jam? And I was really proud of that line. I thought this is good. I even heard that was President Obama's favorite line, which was really cool.
Not very many people could say that was President Obama's favorite line.
And I thought that was great. That brought so many visuals, like imagining him even watching a movie with Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan playing basketball is hilarious to me. But the fact that he thought that line was funny. But now I don't agree with it necessarily because it puts too much pressure on the thing that you make instead of the person you are. For me, for a long time, I thought, oh no, this video is my Space Jam. It's the thing that they'll put it on my tombstone. He made a viral video one time. and that I just thought everything after this is just nothing. Like nothing matters. I can just die now. It's over. I did the thing. And that is so not true. It's destructive to think that we are the things we make. And so it's been a long road to get there. But now I'm in a place where the things I write are not writing my life necessarily.
Yeah.
Instead, they're coming out of an overflow of the love I'm trying to give every day. My worth is not in the art I make. It's not about what will be your Space Jam, this one video, this one song, this one thing. Instead, your whole life is your Space Jam. You're in the midst of a masterpiece right now. And sometimes there's pieces that other people see and they celebrate, but all the pieces matter. And actually, the most important thing I do today, even though I love the two of you, and I'm so proud to be on your podcast. Like, I listen to this podcast and I love it. And so it means a lot to me to be on this and be able to talk with you. But the most important thing I do today is tie my daughter's shoes. like that's the Space Jam today. I looked her in the eyes while I did it, and doing that every day over time. That's the art. That's the work. My senior year of college, 2003, Fred Rogers died. And I had grown up loving Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and deeply connecting with it. And coming to realize that I thought he was talking to me the whole time directly and that thousands of other kids thought the same thing.
Yeah.
But after he died, there was a piece that came out, an article that was about his life and who he was. And I started to read it and think, okay, a lot of my heroes, the more I dive into them, they let me down. And I'm looking at this guy's life, and it seems like this actually came from a deep, thoughtful place. He wasn't just playing with puppets. And I start reading some of the things he wrote and trying to find some of his speeches. And I had thought at that time I'd like to one day work making things for kids. I didn't think it was actually possible, but it would be nice if I could one day. And so I really started to search out as much of his stuff as I could. And I found that he wrote the introduction to a book for ophthalmologists. Dwayne's Ophthalmology was the book. And I came across one on eBay that actually had his introduction. At that point, it was a big deal to order something online myself. I had only recently had a little credit card that would allow me certain funds. It was a debit card. And I ordered on eBay, and I was not necessarily familiar with that. And I also was not familiar with getting textbooks that are about medical, that are designed for medical professionals. But I was super excited. And I remember getting a note from the mailroom at the college and then going to the mailroom, which is over beside a bunch of dumpsters. And I got out with the package that's to me. And I remember sitting there by a bunch of dumpsters, ripping the box open, and there's this book for ophthalmologists. and if anybody else had come by, they would have thought, oh, wow, I didn't know Brad was into eyes. Like, I didn't know. I thought he was an idiot. But wow, he's reading a big book. And I open up, and the first words he wrote to these men and women who would go on to perform complicated surgeries on children's eyes. The first words he wrote, "You were once a child too." When the things I was making started to get any sort of little attention, or people would interview about, where did inspiration come from? Immediately, I would always mention Fred Rogers. Like, well, I'm just saying things Fred Rogers said several years ago, but in different ways. He would say, I think you're special just the way you are. And every video has at some point, Kid President would say, you're awesome. And I like you just the way you are. And let's make the world more awesome. You make the world more awesome just by being who you are. But let's make it more awesome. Trying to speak to the interior lives of everybody watching in a really playful way. And I just kept mentioning Fred Rogers every time. Then one day I get a message from the Fred Rogers Center. And I think this is, again, either a joke or it's a cease and desist.
Back off.
Listen, everything you've done is ripping off his work. It's diminishing it. Please stop. They said they invited me to an event that they were gathering people who create things for children. And it's a little gathering, and I got to be part of it. So they had people from Sesame Street and people from, all these incredible makers of things for young people and families. And so I had a few minutes where I get to share with the audience. And so I told the story of the ophthalmologist book. And in the middle of telling that, a woman stands up and says, I love you, Brad. And I'm thinking, who is this woman? And it is actually Joanne Rogers, like Mrs. Rogers.
My goodness.
And I had heard that she was, fiery, and Fred was very gentle and quiet, and that she would say things sometimes to embarrass him or like make him uncomfortable. Like they're just such a great couple in that way. But yeah, she stood up and was yelling, and I thought, I love this woman. I love her. And I'm wanting to beeline to talk to her after the talk. And this woman stops me and says, where did you find that book? and I'm thinking, oh no, what is this about? She says, where did you find the book for ophthalmologists? And I explained to her the story. She says, my name is Hedda Sharapin. I worked on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood for several years. I was an intern, and then I grew, and then I became a big part, and I helped write a lot of the first drafts of things for Fred or do research. And I wrote the first draft of that essay. And I said, what? She said, I have to tell you this. And she's like got tears coming down her eyes. And she's going, I can't believe that you found this. And she tells me, I did all this research on what we could say that we've learned in our studies that would be beneficial to these men and women who are serving in this way. We had done work with hospitals and people, children in trauma and dealing with surgeries. And so I wrote to that. And Fred, the first draft, he scratched through all of it and just wrote, you were a child once too. She said that was several paragraphs, and he whittled it down to just a few words. And I was just floored that we had found each other and that I got to be part of a little gift of reminding her that somehow her work had come back to me, like a note in a bottle that found its way to me. So she then explained to me sort of how they worked. So Hedda said that he would come through and she would say, oh, you really did a good job editing that. And he's like, oh, I don't like that. I don't want to mess up your work. He felt like insecure about that. And so she started using the phrase elevate. So you elevated this for me. And he was okay with that. He thought, okay, I'm comfortable with that. So he started referring to himself as her elevator operator. And he would take the great work she was doing and then help her take it to the next level. And so he would write ding, ding, elevator up or some little
Oh
thing.
my gosh.
And it was like this little shorthand. He would put EO for elevator operator. And she said that was one of those instances where he taught me about how to communicate concisely, the economy of words, and that can say so much and can actually speak more directly to the heart than several paragraphs. And what's really cool is that Hedda's story, she's one of these people that, she's nowhere near as well known as Fred Rogers, and yet she works at the college, and the students just flock to her. Like, she is doing she's an elevator operator forever, for so many people. She helped out on Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. She is this quiet little elevator operator, and she did it for me too. Working through my book, I then thought about all the ways she could help me elevate it the way that Fred helped elevate her work. I think everybody sort of told stories about their early years in some way, or they see like a baby picture, or you see a blanket and that's like, oh, this was your blanket when you're blanky, or these stories about when you were a little person. And mine was that I was sick. There was some sort of issue with the way that my skull was forming, and I didn't have a soft spot, and that they were going to have to go in and have corrective surgery that would possibly affect the brain, that there could be some sort of damage. And so my mom would always tell me these stories, with a lot of still residual worry in her voice. And I could tell that this was a scary thing that they went through that I do not remember. But what I do know is I have a scar that goes from here on my head all the way back to the part here. And I could go through and feel it, or I would go through and wash my hair, and I would run my hands through my hair, and I can still feel it even now. And it's one of those things that I never really talked about, but always knew it's there. And my mom would sometimes kind of move my hair, shuffle the hair around and feel it. And then she'd tell the story. And touching it always became a memory of realizing it's a big deal that I'm here. Harry Potter has the scar on his head that somehow is like a mark of love, or that he's the one who's different. Mine wasn't cool like a lightning bolt. It's there in my scalp. And when I touch it, it reminds me I almost wasn't here. And if things were different, I wouldn't be here. And maybe I should do something about that. And so it fed this desire to want to make it meaningful. And I'd never talked about it to any other people ever, because it's an odd thing to show this scar that's on your head. But I did visits of schools in all 50 states. I went on this listening tour, and I said, I'm going to listen to what kids have to say in all 50 states. Ask them, what does it mean to be a better grown-up? How can I be a better grown-up? What do you want to be when you grow up? And this one boy in one school asked me, hey, why do you always wear a hat? Every video we see you have a hat, and you wearing a hat. Every day you've been here, you had a hat. And I was like, oh, I just like hats. But then I went, no, these kids have really opened up to me. I should open up to them, because they had been very generous of talking about things they were afraid of and people they loved. And so I said, well, actually, I don't think I've talked to many people about this, but I have a scar. And I told them the story of the scar, and that it's not just one of those, ooh, I got hurt and check this out, or I was riding my skateboard. It's one of those that reminds me that it's a big deal I'm breathing, and I want to add joy and hope to the world somehow, some way, because I'm here. And then other kids start raising their hands to show me their scars. and they start telling me about, yeah, I have this here, and this is where I had surgery. And it unlocked something for those kids. And I think it's something we all know. We've all had a moment where somebody was vulnerable, and we realized it was cathartic for us to hear their story because now we feel we can share ours. But I then began to realize the more I told kids about that scar, and that even as a grown-up, I'm still a little insecure about it, they feel they can tell me about their scars and that it's okay and that it's not a thing they don't have to hide.
Yeah.
It can guide their life story in a beneficial way, a productive way.
You're talking about a literal scar, but there's so much like metaphorical implication that we all walk around putting on this front like everything's fine. We've never been hurt before. But, when we're willing to talk about our scars, to admit that we have been hurt before, it gives our friends and our neighbors permission to not be perfect as well.
Yes.
And to be real and accept their flaws and know that they still belong.
Yeah. That's part of what's at the heart of the Becoming Better Grown-Ups book is an invitation for adults to understand that they don't have to be perfect around the kids in their lives. It's okay to let them know you don't know all the answers. It's okay to let them know you've been hurt before and here's something that happened because it only makes them stronger. And not being afraid to speak to those things. Well, I've always loved to draw. In fourth grade, I drew so much. Like I would finish tests or homework early so that I could draw on the backs of paper. And my teacher then started to notice this, and she would give me, extra sheets of paper, or promise that I would get paper or time to draw if I would just do my work correctly. I just I've always loved to draw, but I haven't always.
Hey kid, I got some sheets of paper here for you.
I mean, it was just, yes, any blank sheet. I mean, coloring books were great to me because the back covers of them were always blank. And so that was the best part of the coloring book is that, it's a whole blank canvas. This is great. And it's hard paper. But yet I was always insecure about the way that I draw because I would see other people draw horses or landscapes and they looked photographic. And then mine looked like, oh, that's a potato with sticks. Like, oh, that's not a person. That's two potatoes together. But yet there's a certain charm to that. Like I get that. But in my head, I'll look and I'm thinking, I want to draw something that looks like this. And then I start drawing potatoes. And yet, again, it's like this lump in the throat. I have to do it. I have to share. I would just doodle and draw all the time. And somehow it feels like that's a purer utterance than if I were to say it. I need to draw these things. And I had begun kind of sheepishly sharing some of my drawings because I didn't want to put my face on camera or post pictures of myself. So I started posting pictures of cats or other animals saying the things I wanted to say.
You are Mr. Rogers, man. It's just like he would just have like a little puppet say it and you have a little cartoon.
Yeah, I'm much more comfortable if a little potato could say it instead of me. And I started sharing them. And a couple of people had reached out about, you could do some illustration. You could illustrate these books. And while I would love to do that, I started thinking, you don't understand. I'm not an actual illustrator. These are little potato people. But one time, this art director from a magazine, Magnolia Journal, which I totally knew, know about Joanne and Chip and just in awe of what they do. And she said, we'd like for you to do a spread in the magazine. And then I'm thinking, how do I respond to this? I'd like to do that, but I physically cannot execute this. Here's my work. And she wrote back, that's actually what we want. We don't want a real horse. We want your horse. We want what you do. And I had not had that happen before in that way. And it was so exciting to me that here was someone who wanted what I brought to the table, and I didn't have to be afraid that they're not going to like it. They want what I bring, the fingerprints that it has within it. And so it became a really fun partnership where they will have a theme for an issue and then I get to draw comics for it. But it's also been a learning in the kind of images we put out into the world. Because, art in itself is a visual medium, and you're actually putting out an image into the world. And that image reflects what the world is or what the world could be. And a lot of times I would send art back. In fact, every single issue, this has been the case. I will send art to them, and then the notes come back. This is great, except it's too sad. Like, okay, we really like what you did here, except everybody's sad. Like, can she be less alone? Can you take the tears off of that little child? Like, does the dog have to be dead? Like, and then my immediate thought is, but that's the way the world is. Like, it's not okay. Like, and it's funnier too if sad things happen in these comics. It's just these little potato people struggling with existence, and then I relent and I'll go, okay, and I'll redraw it and immediately go, that it's less funny, it's less sad, but I want to live in that world. Like, I want that. And I think what I've learned so much from them is that they're committed to say, we're not going to discount that there are struggles, but where we have the power to add beauty, we're going to do it. And so they will let me be honest in these comics, but at the same time, they want there to be, how can we give people an image of a world they want to see and be part of creating? I was maybe 12 and went to summer camp and had this idea that this was an opportunity to show up not just as Brad, plain old Brad, who's always been Brad, who's afraid to talk to people. Not that guy.
Boring old Brad.
Yeah. Oh, come on. Here he comes again. Instead, I was going to reinvent myself at camp, and that I would be this new person. And so I show up and I start telling everybody in my cabin, my name's Chad. So, not very creative, but I guess it's close enough that I can remember it. I don't know. But that sounded cooler. Like, Chad would be a guy who would know what to say. Like, Chad would be a guy who...
He wore a leather jacket. He smoked toy cigarettes.
I mean, he sits backwards in chairs. He's a cool guy. And I introduced myself to the counselor as Chad, and he's like, "Oh, I had it down as Brad." Well, never. Just that's just a typo. And then anyway, so I just go about the week as Chad. I'm feeling confident, but then I also sort of start to give up on the joke a little bit and start letting it slip that my name is Brad to a few people and going, "Oh, wait, sorry, it's Chad." And obviously, terrible liar. When mail call comes at camp, I start getting my mail as when they call Brad Montague. And people start going, "Wait, I thought it was Chad." And this is this whole big thing. It was a scandal. People are going, "What? I thought his name was Chad. I thought it was Brad." And half the camp thinks one thing. And my counselor sits me down. There's a whole group of boys. And he says, "All right, we're going to get to the bottom of this. What is your real name? Tell me, what's your real name?" And I explained the story, and I open up, and I just said, "It's actually Brad." And I just thought it would be funny. And I just wanted to be different at camp. And so he gets a pool noodle and says, "You are not Brad. You are not Chad. You are now Brad Chad." And he knighted me with this pool noodle, and everyone began to refer to me as Brad Chad. And then I come back to camp the next year, and there were people who weren't even there that week of camp who knew me as Brad Chad, who had become part of camp lore. You know how those names just sort of seep in, where people get nicknames like Spoons or Biscuit or Pinecone. And I was Brad Chad. And it stuck for years. Even now, I will be in an event, and it's like maybe a book signing, and someone will go, "So, Brad Chad, how are you?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I know exactly at what period in my life you know me from." But it was this identity crisis. I'm actually Brad. I want to be Chad. I attempted to be Chad, but instead now I have this scarlet letter of a nickname that's Brad Chad, where I am both my light and dark side. God, I must walk through life as a combination of fake me and real me, which is not so far off from how we kind of go through these split personalities that, you know, you have the guy you want to be and the guy you actually are. And the gap between is sort of where we dance and live and move. And I wish so badly that I had, and this is what I want to be for kids now, is someone who looks at that kid who's so obviously trying to be this far off distant vision of themselves or figure out who they are, and just look them in the eyes and let them know you want to be loved so much, and you already are.
Yeah.
You're okay here. Drop everything that's fake. You can be who you are here. It's okay. I think it's so valuable for all of us to do that for the people around us, whether it's children or a spouse or somebody in our midst, seeing them and naming them. Not you're JJ, you're Dave, but you are a giver of gifts. You have a voice that brings joy and beauty to the world. You're not who you say you are. You're more.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I think about, the Brad Chad story. I think about the time at the Nashville Writers Round where you sang a song instead of doing your made up special thing. And then I think about how you didn't know if you were the right fit for the Magnolia Journal because you couldn't draw like the other illustrators, and how over and over the message has been just be yourself. And it's like the Fred Rogers thing, you are special, and Kid President, you are awesome. And it's just this beautiful theme in your life. And I love that you are reflecting that to us in all the work that you present to the world. So thank you so much for that gift of not only your words of encouragement, but also just who you are.
Same to you. I think a lot of it is me saying to everybody else online, you're special. The world is awesome just because you're in it, except for me. Like that's true for everybody, but not me.
Yeah.
And to own that myself is, I think, a practice of being able to accept that I'm not the exception to that love.
Well, I think sometimes as creators, we make the material that we ourselves need to hear the most.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, I will have days where I'm in a funk and I'll talk to a friend and then they'll send me a video I made like 5 years ago.
They're like,
you should watch this.
I know exactly what you need to hear right now. And you're the one who actually said it before.
Yeah, you should read this. This is actually pretty good. And then I'll read it and go, ugh, why?
If you could go back to the first day of summer camp and sit on a bench beside young Brad, who's come up with this harebrained idea to call himself Chad, what do you think you would tell him?
I am embarrassed to tell you, I have thought about that so many times. Like, I love movies that are about time travel. I love, like, all that idea of being able to go back in time and tell yourself something like, invest in Bitcoin or whatever, like something that's like that. But I actually worked through the logic of, if I told myself this or said this, that it would change this, and wanting so badly to like protect myself from pain or prepare myself for some sort of thing that I would go through. And I think as much as I want to hug that kid and just tell him, you are enough, like you're already loved, just accept the love that is already right in front of you. I want to say some things of that magnitude and let the kid know he belongs. But I think what I would have to say, the responsible thing to say, would be to look at him and say, I'm from the future. I know you have questions, but let me tell you this. Enjoy it.
think that's pretty much incredible advice for anyone at any age.
That's so true. None of us knows what's going to happen next. So we might as well just enjoy the present moment exactly where we are.
Thanks, Brad.
You can find out more about Brad at montagueworkshop.com.
So that's it. That's the end of Season 3 of Instrumental.
While it may be a little bit before you hear new episodes of this show, we're still releasing new music on the first Friday of every month.
And you can find out more about me, watch my videos, or listen to my music at jjheller.com.
You can also always tell your voice assistant, "Hey Alexa," or "Hey Siri, play JJ Heller." It worked so well that it just made my laptop do it.
This episode of Instrumental was produced by me, JJ Heller.
And me, Dave Heller.
Our theme song is Big Love, Small Moments.
Which I helped write.
Yes, you did.
And if you're so inclined, leave a review on Apple Podcasts.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next season.